Well, hello again. Welcome back to the Alan Hudson podcast. Thanks very much for joining us again. Before we introduce our guest today, just want to say, if you do like what we do on the podcast, please remember to like, follow and subscribe. That'd be a great help to us. So onwards and upwards. Today's guest, as you can see, the very handsome John Gregory in the corner there. I think he's getting a bit worried about me calling him handsome. But
I'm glad you're there and not here, Tone.
Well, we're delighted to see you, John, and you're looking so well.
Yeah,
Thanks for joining us today.
I've had easy life, Tone. I've had easy life. I've been looked after. I only used to work a couple of hours a day, mate, as you know. So so I'm okay, mate. In good shape.
Well, it's good to have you along, Alan. I'm sure you got words of introduction for John.
Well, I was saying I've been rushing around this morning. I just made it, and the first thing that comes to mind as John as a player was elegance. Would that be right?
Oh yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah. Well, that's the way I see you. I think we only have played against each other once. I think it's Stoke one day.
Might have done. I might have been at QPR when you were at Stoke.
Yeah. I had a stinker.
Before we go any further, I was just speaking with Tony before you came into the room, and I looked at you when you were like 17, 18. You're only 3 years older than me. So I was still sort of growing up. I hadn't been long left school, and you were in the first team. I can remember looking at you in the first team at Chelsea, surrounded by, in my eyes, superstars. You know, with Ozzy and Hutch and Johnny Hollins and Charlie Cook, incredible footballers, and you were in that team. And I thought you yourself had only just left school. You know what I mean? And we kind of used to pretend to be you. And when we were playing football and five-a-sides and that, you know, I wanted to be Alan Hudson because you were elegant. You were so cool, and you lived on the King's Road. And you know your whole life was revolved around Chelsea, and you were like the guy that we all wanted to emulate. I'm not a Chelsea fan, but you
no, mine. That's two of us, John.
You're a Fulham fan, aren't you?
Well, I was in the early days. I think my father was a lot to do with it. You know, he took me to see the great inside forwards like John White at Tottenham and George Eastham at Arsenal. I always mention them, and that's the way I see the game. You know, my first book was called The Working Man's Ballet, which Tony Waddington, that was his title for the game, and that's the way he see it. And I think that's why he see me as George Eastham's replacement. But yeah, them times, I think what it was as well, John, I mean, you just hit it on the head, it was the times of the King's Road. And I mean, I've just been down the King's Road now, and it's not they should change the name of it, you know, but, you know, Delhi High Street or something, you know. But no, you know, I didn't want to leave Chelsea, but it was the greatest thing ever happened to me, really, because I found the manager of my dreams, who let me get away with the odd bit of mischief because he was mischievous himself. But as long as you done it on a Saturday for him, you know, he was in his good books, and he was top manager, top man, gentleman. And he could mix in any crowd, you know. He could mix with royalty. He could mix with the lads down the pit, and you know, he was. And years later, I was lucky enough to come across Jock Stein, and he was kind of a replica of him. You know, it was like speaking to Tony. You know, Tony Waddington and Jock. They could have been brothers. It was, and he was a great. Jock was obviously a incredible football manager. You know, so I was fortunate in them. I suppose. I sometimes wonder with the way they were treated by the FA and 2 or 3 of the clubs that got rid of me for the wrong reasons and cheated me. I sometimes try and weigh up if it was all worth it. But when you've met people like that in the game, they far outweigh the bad things, you know.
Well, just jumping ahead a little bit, I had Paul Merson. at Aston Villa.
Yeah.
And he was in my office every day.
Yeah.
He wanted this, he wanted that. I wanted a day off. Can I have next Tuesday off? Can I have this off? Can I do this? Can I do this, Gaff? And always it was like, yeah, do what you want. Because on the Saturday, he was my best player.
Invaluable, yeah.
On the Saturday, he was brilliant. And he'd come in one morning and somebody hadn't said good morning to him, and he had the ump, and he was sulking all morning in training. And then he'd come in my office afterwards and want to do this, want to do that. And it was like, yes, Merce, whatever you want to do, Merce, not a problem, Merce. Because on the Saturday, when it really mattered, he'd be head and shoulders our best player on the pitch. He'd win matches for us single-handedly, you know. So I can understand how Tony Waddington treated you.
Yeah, it's called great man management as well, John, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
But, got on to Mercer. I love the story about Mercer. You never get tired of hearing the one where, the one where he goes on holiday and he told Tony Adams. He said he was going into the clinic, and he come back with a suntan. And he bumped into one of Harry Redknapp's mates, wasn't it? He was with Harry, and Harry's mate called him from Barbados or something. He said, I've just seen one of your players. He said, no, he's in a clinic. He said, no, he ain't. He's in my hotel. But without them, them characters are gone, John, aren't they?
Yeah, I'm afraid they are.
Sadly drifted away.
They're not.
And I think it affects our national team more than anything. When you watch our national team play,
true.
That reflects, we haven't got that character. I think my all-time favourite England forward would have been Teddy Sheringham.
Yes.
He was that kind of player. He was, the same as yourself. I love the elegance part of it. He played at the very top till he was 40, and he kept his level of his standards up.
Yeah, true.
Consistent.
Amazing to have kept playing to that age.
Yeah,
and he still looked 22. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, some people are lucky today.
I know. He still looked a young boy.
I think he was very fortunate. He kept himself well. I see him out a couple of times. Never spoke to him. Always immaculate.
Yes.
And I think he got the one thing he had going for him. He never really got really serious injury.
Oh, true. That's true.
Which we all, some of us, we've had a couple of lads on the show. Brian Little, for instance, had to pack up when he was 26 or something.
Yeah, that's true.
Tragedy, really. And he took it on the chin and didn't really bother him too much.
No.
It's heartbreaking, really. But,
can we just go? Hang on now. Can we just go back to the beginning for John? I mean, John, your dad was a pro, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
Was he how you originally got in the game? Was he your inspiration?
No, I wouldn't say that. I just think growing up, I was surrounded by football. My father played at West Ham during the early 50s. He played with John Bond, Kenny Brown, Malcolm Allison, Franco Farrell. Ernie Gregory was the goalkeeper in those days. And he did okay there. And then he moved around a bit, and he ended up. We moved to a little town called St Neots up in Cambridgeshire. It's not far from Bedford, and he got the job there as like player manager. Obviously, only semi-professional they were, and so I grew up there, like watching them going to the matches every Saturday, helping my dad put the nets up, helping my dad mark the lines, helping cut the grass, helping put the kit out, pump the balls up on a Friday afternoon, ready for the match on the Saturday. So I was surrounded by football, and my first recollection really is the 1960 FA Cup final, when my dad told me to sit down next to him. I'd have been 6 years old, and it was Wolves against Blackburn, and I was gobsmacked by the fans, by the crowd, 100,000 people. That was the one game that obviously we used to get live on the TV. was the FA Cup final, black and white, of course, in those days. So, and I sat there watching it, and I was gobsmacked by the way that they celebrated the goals and how many people were inside the stadium. They all used to throw their hats up in the air, you know, when the goal went in, and they all had shirt and tie on in those days. Yeah. All the fellas had ties on. So I can just remember that final and really sort of getting the bug for football. I said I was only 6, and then I had a football with me everywhere I went. You know, when I used to go to bed at night, I used to take the ball up, put it on the end of the bed, wake up in the middle of the night, make sure it was still there, and just, you know, football at school. I started getting in the school teams and all that kind of stuff, and so really it was all I ever wanted to do.
Yeah,
it's all I ever wanted to do. It was football. Anything to do with football, I was your man, you know. So that was it really, and I was just desperate. But living in a place like St Neots up in Cambridgeshire, it's not exactly the hotbed of football, you know.
I know.
The biggest problem I had was actually getting seen by somebody, you know. And I got to 15. I was 15 years old before I got a trial. I wrote away for a trial at Northampton, and they invited me to come over and have a trial on a Sunday morning. And, you know, there was 22 kids all come for a trial. We didn't know each other's name. We used to call each other by the number on the back, you know, because we didn't know their names. And they wanted me to sign as an apprentice professional, which they'd just got relegated to the League Division 4, which is League 2 these days. Yeah. And they've just got beaten, Huddy, you remember. Bestley had just scored 6 against them in the FA Cup.
Right.
Manchester United beat them 8-2, and they'd just got relegated, and I signed for them in 1970 as an apprentice. And mate, you would have thought I'd signed for Barcelona. You know, it was the feeling of being wanted by somebody and signing a contract, and actually now being a 24/7 footballer. The feeling of that, mate, was just incredible. And then I managed, like yourself, I got in the first team when I was 18 and started playing regularly every week until I got the move to Aston Villa when I was 22. So yeah, I played 187 games actually in the old 3rd and 4th divisions, you know, which was an amazing experience for somebody my age. You know, I learned so much during my time playing for the Cobblers.
Yeah. Funnily enough, I watched them yesterday. I went down to see Wimbledon beat them yesterday. That was where
I beat 1-0.
Yeah, I just went to pick my winnings up. But I also saw one of the biggest thrills I had being a Fulham supporter when Fulham had to go to Northampton and win. They beat them 4-2. Johnny Haynes, Bobby Robson played. And Graham Moore played for Northampton. Right. My father took me there when we were Fulham supporters, and that was my recollection. But while you're talking about you obviously had you don't lose it. You still got a love affair with the game, and I think of how strange people are. You know, Stan Bowles was one of the greats. He could never understand what you've just been talking about, your love for the game. He had no love for the game whatsoever. He didn't want to talk about the game. He didn't. Whenever he come off the field, it was all about greyhounds and horses, and you know, he had no love whatsoever. And for someone so gifted, it would mesmerise me. And I remember we were both kind of similar financially, had no money, and someone asked me to do a night over at Sutton Football Club, and I did a night over there, and they said, "Can you bring someone with you?" So I mentioned Stan. Could you really get him? I said, "Yeah." I phoned Stan up. They offered me, this was about 15, 18 years ago. They offered me 300 quid for the night, or 600 quid. I phoned Stan up. I said, look, how do you want to earn an easy 300 quid? I said, meet me in a pub. It was at a pub on Warren, just off Warren Street, round the corner, which I used to use when going to Euston and that. And went up to the bar with him. He never bought a drink, never bought a pack of cigarettes, never bought nothing. And I said, is that all right for you then? The money all right, 300 quid each. And he said, look, one problem. He said, what were you going to talk about? Right. So I said, Stan, do you realise who you are? Do you realise how great a player you? He said, I don't really like it. I don't like talking about football. So I had a problem trying to get him. So anyway, he done the night with me, and he told a few funny stories about, you know, him and Don Shanks, how they would, you know, the geezer behind the goal had a radio, and there was a race on the radio, and there was a corner, and they edited it back out for a corner so they could listen to the end of the race, you know, things like that, you know. So, you know, and I suppose Merce was a little bit the same, but Merce was in love with the game, he obviously. But Stan Bowles is just a bewilderment to me. You know, he just didn't like football, and for someone who was so good, you know.
Merce come in my office one day, and he said, "Why have you given us tomorrow off?" I said, "Merce, we've had 3 games in 14 days. Everybody needs to go." I said, "I'm shutting the building down. Even the girls in the kitchen, they're not coming in. Everyone's staying away." He said, "You give us a day off about 3 weeks ago," and he said, "I lost $7,000." So I said, "Yeah, but how can that be my fault?" He said, "Because you gave us the day off." He said, "I've gone back to my apartment." He said, "I've got nothing to do." He said, "I end up picking up the phone and having a bet." He said, "I had a bet on the Indonesian tennis open final." He said, "I didn't even know who the 2 players were." He said, "But I had $7,000 on one of them," and he said he lost. So he said, "It's your fault. I've lost $7,000." So I don't want. He said, "I don't want
to be reimbursed." Really, when he John, he wanted to make.
Yeah, he wanted me to reimburse him, but for giving him a day off. So Merce. I think Merce wasn't quite as bad as Stanley.
No.
But nevertheless,
John, you've got to tell the story you told me just before we came on air about Stan.
Which one was that?
About the testimonial.
Oh yeah, typical Stan. Obviously, I went to QPR with Jim Gregory was my owner. He was the owner and chairman, and I used to see him. If I needed a new contract, I used to go and see Uncle Jim, like, you know, and try and butter him up, because we used to get on really well. He quite liked me as a player, so I got on quite well with him. And he said, I had Stan Bowles in the office the other day. I said, "Oh really?" I said, "What was that about then?" He said, he come over. He said he wanted 500 quid, and he said he wanted the cash. He wanted it as quick as possible. I said, "Oh, he's obviously got somebody chasing him." Then he said, "Yeah." He said, "I offered him a testimonial." I said, "I'll give him a testimonial instead of the 500 quid. And he said, "No, I'd rather have the 500 quid. And you think, you silly bugger. You know, if he had a testimonial, he'd get 50 grand, you know what I mean?
I said, yeah, that's where the term reddies comes into it, I suppose, doesn't it? You know?
Absolutely.
But, unbelievable.
Can we just talk a bit about your playing career? Because I mean, we've got so much to get through in a short amount of time. You play for, obviously you've mentioned Northampton, and then you went to Villa, QPR, Derby, Brighton. What was the highlight of your playing career? Which club did you enjoy playing for the most?
Well, I at various stages they all had their really good moments. You know, we went to Brighton, and first time they'd ever been in the top league. First time they ever got into League Division 1, into the Premier League. And we went up and we stayed up 2 years on the trot. We stayed up under Alan Mullery as the manager. We were obviously favourites to get relegated, and we hovered around the relegation zone for 2 years, and managed to stay up both times. So, you know, there was good memories there. QPR under Venables was incredible. I know, Alan, you'd appreciate Tony Waddington. Venables was an amazing coach. He was Pep Guardiola 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Seriously, he was Pep Guardiola 40 years ago. He taught us as a group of players how to play football, how to play the game. He taught me as a midfield player, Alan, how to get the ball off the back four.
Yeah.
I said I can't because I'm marked, and he just taught you on the training ground how to receive the ball, how to get the ball off the back four, and he just taught us so much. Training every day was just new. It was new. The normal procedure, as you probably appreciate, Al, was you come in, you had to run 4 times around the pitch as a warm up, then you played 11v11, kicked lumps out of each other. And then that was it. And then you did exactly the same the next day and exactly the same the day after. And suddenly I've gone with Terry Venables and he's putting out bollards and cones and bibs and everything on the training field before training. And then you go out and it was just completely new. Everything that he did was new. And that whatever session he did that day, he wouldn't do it again for another 3 months.
Yeah.
Because it was something new again the next day, and then it was something new again the next day, and just playing under Venables. I know we had the plastic pitch, but we did exceptionally well. We got promotion from the Championship into the Premier League. We finished 5th. I mean, nobody gets promoted these days from the Championships and finishes 5th. In the Premier League, and that's how good Venables was as a coach. And then, of course, we lost him to Barcelona. Went to Barcelona. They hadn't won the league for 10 years.
Yeah,
they won it in the first year under Venables. He just went there, and that's how good he was. He was an exceptionally good coach, and obviously QPR. There was very happy memories of my time there, and I got in the England squad when I was 29 years old. 29 years old, and I got in the England squad for the very first time, and again, it was like I was 10 years old again, you know. I got picked for England. I was like a 10-year-old kid. Who
did you on there?
Bobby Robson.
Right.
Yeah. Or Robbie Bobson, as we used to call him.
Yeah.
He used to get everybody's name wrong. But he loved the game. He loved football. You talk about people loving the game. He loved the game.
I'll tell you a quick one about Venice. I get on great with Venice. I love Venice.
I'm sure.
You know, I watched him as a kid at Chelsea. He was still there. He just left when I got there, but I knew him from evening training and kind of based my game on him a little bit, but wanted to be better.
Yes.
Obviously, but do certain things he couldn't do, like run a distance and this kind of stuff. But when Waddington got, he first got offered the job by Matt Busby to take over from him, Tony, and Tony knew that he loved Stoke City so much, and he knew Manchester United would finish because they were all too old together. George kept going on the run. And so Leeds, he went for an interview with the fella up in Leeds with all the money, and they interviewed him, and he said it's been very good. The interview's been great. Thank you very much for interviewing me, but I've got to say no. And he said to me, better the devil you know than you know. And they went and got Cloughie, but. As he was leaving the room, he says, "Can I just tell you one thing? You're a fantastic club. You're fantastic people. But if you're looking to stay up where you are, there's only one man to get." He says, "There's a young coach in London called Terry Venables. Go and get him now if you want to stay Leeds United. You know, he will. He's the kiddie because he was friends with. Did you know Maurice Keston?"
Yes, I did know Morris, yeah.
Morris was a big Tottenham fan, so he was very close to Tony, and that's where, you know, that our paths would cross. It was a great relationships, and that all football related. And And next thing you know, they ignored Tony, and Ryan Clough turned up. And so what a ricket, they
For
made.
44 days.
Yeah. But Venables was, and he proved in '96. The thing, the great mystery of all of this is, if he'd have carried on that, because he was in court all the time when he was Sugar and that and whatever.
True.
And if he'd have stayed on as England manager, just how far we could have went in '98. And
I just used to think, and he started doing it at QPR. He just started. He went missing for a couple of days a week, and he was obviously trying to improve his business side of his life.
Yeah,
he was always off doing something or other, launching something, some company that he started. He started selling tickets. He got involved with a company in London where you could buy tickets like online sort of thing. He started that very early, back in the mid '80s. And sometimes we didn't see him on a Monday and Tuesday training because he'd been off somewhere or other. And he just started getting involved in the business world as opposed to being on the training field.
Yeah.
And I think that affected him slightly during his time in England, certainly with us at QPR. And there was often Mondays and Tuesdays we wouldn't see him, and he'd obviously then come in on Thursday, Friday. Was brilliant as always, and we usually would win on the weekend. But I just think he started getting involved a little bit off the field more than on it.
Yeah.
I think he got a little bit distracted as well, with that. But otherwise he was superb,
Yeah, but Terry was typical. He was involved with the book, the program Hazel, wasn't he? He was involved in that.
Right.
And he was like, he would have been the perfect Dell boy, wouldn't he? He loved to pound. So charming, so lovely. Whenever he's out, what he was doing, and he was everything he'd done. Even when he sang, he had a bit of class about him. It was we lost a great lad when but he was very. I suppose he come from a circle. George Graham pulled me one day. I went to Jeff Powell, got an OBE, and he invited me along in London 18 months ago, and I bumped into George, and George was going the same way. He's not too clever, George, and he just turned around to me and he said, "I owe my whole career to Terry Venables."
Yes, I'm sure.
He said, he left. After he took me to Crystal Palace and all that kind of thing, and that's where I started. Then he went to them, and he managed Millwall, didn't he? And then he was Arsenal. But George was along them lines as well. But Venables, someone said to me one day, he was a scavenger for ideas.
Yeah,
which sussed him. That about summed him up.
Yeah, true.
The way you speak about him, and you imagine if the whole game was like him, and he would go out there and coach English coaches, and we wouldn't need it. We wouldn't want Guardiola. He's not my cup of tea anyway. But
how much of you what you learned from Terry did you take into your managerial career, John?
He called me in the office one day. Now listen, he signed me when I was 27, and this was the first time that I'd been really coached. Like I said earlier, most of the coaching was done when you come out, did 4 laps of the pitch and played 11v11. That was it, end of. He was the first time I'd ever been coached, and he called me in the office one day, and I was after about a year, and he said, "What are you gonna do? What are you going to do after you finish playing football? Have you got anything organised? Are you preparing yourself for it or whatever?" I said, "No, nothing really." He said, "What about coaching? You thought about going into coaching?" I said, yeah, sort of. He said, "Well, what are you going to do about it?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, why don't you start now? Why don't you start sort of preparing yourself? If that's what you want to do, you're 27, you'll play for another 5 or 6 years. During that 5 or 6 years, you can prepare yourself ready for the day when you hang up your boots and maybe you want to go into coaching."
Yeah.
And by then you've done 5 years homework. So I thought, yeah, great. So I then used to go home after training every day and write down in an exercise book what we did that day.
Yeah.
What we did in training. I literally write it all out completely. Like, did the warm up. Alan Harris took the warm up. We did this. We did that. Then we played a 6v6. Then we did 3v3, and we did this, and we had keep ball session or a finishing session or whatever. And I used to write stuff down. And on a Saturday, I used to, you know, like in the newspapers at the weekend, you'd get marks out of 10. So I started marking my team, QPR, the team that I just played for. I'd go home on a Sunday morning or whatever and write down the marks, like out of 10.
Yeah.
For my teammates.
Yeah.
I have to say, I very often got man of the match. I used to write down everything, and I wrote down all these coaching ideas and all the things that we'd done during that training session with Terry. And then I built up 2 or 3 exercise books, you know, with all these coaching sessions in, which, to answer your question, Tone, I then would incorporate in my own training sessions as I got older, as I went into coaching. I used to put on the training sessions that I'd done under Terry. Now, the key is you need to make 1 or 2 changes so it's not completely Terry Venables' coaching session.
Yeah,
you put in 1 or 2 of your own ideas to make it slightly different and to make it your own, you know. But I did copy a lot. All the way through my coaching career, all the way through my management career, there was sessions that I put on, and I can remember. I remember when I did this at QPR, you know, with Terry, and how good it was and how it worked. And very often the same training session, almost the same training session that I'd done under Terry 20 years ago, I would then put on the training ground, and it worked.
Yeah,
it worked, and I got out of it exactly what I wanted out of it. And a lot of it was down to obviously his ability to coach a group of players. So I did copy Tony. I did copy some bits, but always make sure that you put your own mark on it somewhere.
It's quite fascinating, Johnny. I mean, and it's superbly honest. As you're talking about, I'm thinking about Don Howe.
Yes.
When he come to Arsenal, you know, we were in shambles at Arsenal. We were like, I was having a bad time, had a bad injury, abdominal injury, and I'd fallen out with the manager and couldn't get on. And then we were about 5th from bottom, and Don Howe come along and revamped the whole thing, took training, and, you know, he didn't make it as a manager. He didn't cut it as a manager. He was like Dave Sexton, couldn't handle that side of it.
Yeah, sure.
Stick to coaching, you know. And he was absolutely fantastic because what he'd done, he simplified everything.
Yes.
Nothing was ever too complicated. You know, if you couldn't do the simple, like, you know, I would say simplicity is genius, and only idiot managers complicate things, you know. And that's what football is today has become. It's become the complication.
Yes.
It's you don't know when Chelsea supporters go and watch Chelsea. I'm surrounded by them, and they're complicated. They don't understand. They don't know what's going on. Nobody knows what's going on, you know. Whereas in your way, and if your way of thinking, Terry's way of thinking, Don Howe's way of thinking, you know what you're going to get on Saturday.
Yeah, true.
And that's when your flair players start to come good, and, you know, you're organised. You've got, you know, like Don was so organised, it was unbelievable. Didn't expect too much of you, but he let the players play. You know, the only time he had a go, we had Liam Brady on. I played with Brady, fantastic player, fantastic left foot, and he had a go at him. He fell out with him after one game. He said, "You got to." He kind of told him in front of everybody, which I don't know whether it was right or wrong. And Chippy flew off the handle, and he said, "Look," he said, "I'm going to tell you, we just got beat at Villa 1-0. We should have won, but we didn't deserve it in the end." He had a go at the 3 midfield players. I was one of them, and I held my hands up. He said, "But Chippy," he said, "you." He said, "You do the same thing time after time after time." He said, he said, I'll give you an example. And he didn't want to know. We just lost. This weren't the right time for a team talk. And he went, when Stanley Matthews, the reason Stanley Matthews was so good, he said he could dribble, he could beat people. He said, but they'd knock it into him and he'd knock it off straight away. And then they'd do it again, he'd knock it off straight away. And they'd do this 3 times, and all of a sudden the left back would stop closing him down. Then he held it, and then he took him on and beat him. He said, do you understand that? He said, what do you fucking know? He said, you was a fullback. It's for him. He said, fuck off, he went. And it was great, but he'd just been told that if he'd have done it in his office, Chippy probably wouldn't have blew off the handle,
That's really
but that was the way Don was, and he had to be told. And I love the man, and he rollicked me before the cup the final against Ipswich. He gave me a bollocking because he told me on the Thursday morning, he said, you look a little bit upset. He said, you don't seem yourself. I said, no, I'm all right, Don. I've been out the night before. It was in the Wembley tunnel, funnily enough. We were trained on the pitch at Wembley. And he said, if you're bothered about playing, he said, no, you'll be playing Saturday. I said, well, it didn't really bother me, Don. I said, I do or I don't, because I'm not really on the top of me game. I left my best form at Stoke and I was a little bit injured. I said, but thanks for telling me. Get home that night, and a fella called Bob Driscoll called me. He worked on the Sun. And he, blah, blah, good luck Saturday. He says, I suppose you're a bit hesitant about playing. And I said, no, Don told me I'm playing. He's, as a friend, I knew Bob. I used to go drinking in Fleet Street with him. He only went and printed it.
Oh.
Well, Don Howe had me in his office, and how he did everything but smash me in the face. He punched the walls. He said, "You." He went mad. He get out my sight. Get out my sight. He never spoke to me. And as we come out, the final whistle, I walked out. We got beat 1-0, and he patted me on the back, and he said, "I spoke to that fella Driscoll." He said, "Your story comes up true." He said, "And by the way, you're our best player today." I said, "But losing here, mate, best player don't make any difference, does it? Nothing like losing in a final." Oh. But did you was at QBR with TC on the plastic?
Yeah.
How did you get on playing with Tony?
Loved it. The only thing with him, he used to get the ball off the goalkeeper, and he's still got 90 yards to go. There's 90 yards between him in possession and the opposition's goal.
Yeah.
And if I was playing against Tony Curry, I would love to see him as deep as he used to be.
Yeah.
He was, and I always had this thing with him. If he played another 50 yards further up the pitch, he'd have created. When he was creating stuff, we would be in on goal. But he's in his own half, and like I say, play 1-2s in his own half. Or go and get the ball in his own half of the pitch. And sometimes he did it, obviously, because he wanted to get involved. But he never really hurt the opposition in his own half of the pitch.
Yeah,
I played against him when he was at Leeds, and he murdered us at Villa Park. He absolutely murdered us that day. And getting to work with him, fantastic guy, brilliant bloke.
Yeah.
He was just coming to the end, though, Huddy, He was just coming to the end of his career. Which had been a fantastic career, and the game was catching up with him a little bit,
I think, John. I think I remember going down to Loftus Road once to see. I don't know who I went to see. I don't know. It might have been Terry. I don't know, but I went to TC, and it was the plastic pitch. Now Tony had a bad knee. And I said to him, "Why on earth did you come here to play on plastic surface?" He's like, "Because I had this in North American Soccer League. It's like playing on the M6, John, isn't it?"
I know. It's hard work.
And I think that was why he probably went so deep, and he, to get more space and that, because he couldn't. He wasn't. I mean, at Sheffield United, he played in a team which really wouldn't really survive today. Take him out of the team, and they would probably be a second division team, something like that. It was, and he came on, and I played with a fella called Jeff Salmons who came to Sheffield United. He said Sammy was great for us. So take them two out the side, at Sheffield United. But TC, how he played on that plastic pitch and how you played on it, I don't know. I just and you got success through it.
Yeah, we did, and it was the pitch itself was okay. It was hard playing. We trained on it every day.
Yeah.
So literally, we played on it once a fortnight. So, but for the other 12 or 13 days, we trained on it every day. So we knew exactly what the ball was going to do on it.
Yeah.
An opposition would come there, and they couldn't stand up, mate. They couldn't stand up on the pitch.
Yeah. I was going to say you had the advantage from the kickoff, didn't you?
Huge advantage.
Yeah.
Our home record was exceptionally good because of the pitch. Just hold that there. I just need to plug you in.
Tell us a bit about Villa and your time there, and maybe Deadly Doug, of course, you work with.
Of course.
You must have a couple of stories about Deadly Doug.
Yeah, I left Brian Little. I left him in 96, and I went to be manager at Wycombe Wanderers. I told Brian that there might come a day when I want to be my own man and this, that, and the other. But I went with him from Leicester. We went to Villa Park, and obviously we knew everything at Villa Park. We knew everybody. We knew all the office staff. We knew them. We knew the owner. We didn't really know too many of the players. We inherited an amazing team. We inherited Ray Houghton, Paul McGrath, Andy Townsend, Steve Staunton, Mark Bosnich, Hugo Ekiog, Gary Parker, Earl Barrett, Phil King, left back. We inherited a great team from Ron Atkinson, and the time I had there, I had 2 years with him there at Villa Park, which were fantastic. We won the League Cup in '96 when we beat Leeds 3-0 in the final. So everything was good there. But I went off to do my own thing at Wycombe, and then I went back 16 months later. Brian walked out. Brian had a fallout, and he's left the club. And I had obviously the chance. I was offered the manager's job, took the job, and I knew everybody except Stan Collymore. He was all the other players. I knew them all. I'd worked with them all before. They were still the same group of players, and the only difference was Stan Collymore. And in my first training session, we're doing some crossing and finishing, and somebody's crossed the ball. Stan's jumped up, headed it in the top corner. Good goal. And one of the coaches come up to me. He said, you've cracked it with Stan. I said, what do you mean? They said, that's the first time he's headed the ball in 6 months. Seriously. And they were serious. I said, you're joking? I said, no, seriously. He's not headed the ball for 6 months. I said, you cracked it with him. Anyway, we played Liverpool on the Saturday. My first game was Liverpool at home. Could have had a better opposition, you know what I mean? But it's Liverpool at home who were flying. Michael Owen was about 18 and he was on fire. And we went 1-0 down after 5 minutes. And I'm thinking to myself, shit, this could be 5 or 6. And we won 2-1. And Stan scored 2 goals. He was unbelievable. Huddy, he chased everything that day. He fought like a tiger. He was amazing.
Yeah.
We win 2-1. We go to play Atletico Madrid on the Tuesday night in the away leg, quarter-final of the UEFA Cup. He didn't move an inch. And like, honestly, I just didn't know. And I saw this brilliant player on the Saturday, and then on the Tuesday night, I saw the complete opposite. A guy that just wasn't interested, not involved, looked like he couldn't care less, looked like he didn't want to be there. And suddenly I realised, what Brian had, the problems that Brian had during his time at the club. So that opened my eyes again, thinking that everything was going to be great, and suddenly it wasn't so great. We went on to win quite a few games. We finished the season well. We finished in Europe. But then, obviously, then I started to change 1 or 2 players in the summer, bringing in some of my own players. But it was it was amazing, massive club, and I'll tell you what, everybody that comes to Villa, so, like players over the years, I've seen all these players when they sign for Villa, they always say one sentence: "I never realised what a big club Villa is." And it's a huge club.
Yeah,
I mean, they fill that place most weeks now, 40 odd thousand every week.
Yeah.
It is a big club, and it probably hasn't. It's starting to get a bit more credit under Emery. But we'd be last on match of the day. You know, we just beaten Liverpool 2-1, and we'd be last on match of the day like 2 minutes. You know, because they're playing Manchester United versus Liverpool or something. You know, which was 0-0. But that'd get the prime slot. You know, and Villa would be on last for 30 seconds or something. You know. So it sometimes doesn't get the credit. The club itself doesn't get the credit it deserves. It's a big club with huge following, and obviously I'd like to see them continue to be successful under Emery.
About the getting late, I know. Were you ever close to getting the England job?
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. No one ever spoke to me about it. No, it's just media, you know. It's just maybe some comment that somebody made, and I can remember back in the day when I was playing for QPR, and it come out that I was going to Liverpool. Liverpool had made a bid, $250,000 for me, and I was going to Liverpool, but it never happened for one reason or another. So yeah, you know what it's like, Al. There's always rumours about this, that, and the other. But no, I don't think that. I don't think that was ever a consideration.
Did I meet your brother? Did he have a pub in the King's Road?
He did.
Yeah.
My brother Jason.
Did you ever get in there?
No, never went in there.
I went in there to try and catch you once.
Oh, he's a George Best. He's a Man United fan, my brother. George was his hero.
Oh, right. Understandably.
And then he met him.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He said he used to go in the pub. Was it called the Half Moon or something? No.
Man in the Moon.
Man in the Moon. Yeah, he said George come in, and he started to be a regular. And he said I didn't want him to come in.
Really?
They said you're supposed to not meet your heroes, and he met George and wished he hadn't.
Oh, really? Amazing.
Yeah, he just said he wasn't the man I thought he was, and I think he fell out with him a few times. I think George owed him a few quid and never paid it. Something like that. You'd know that.
Before we wrap up, John, can we just touch on the last few clubs in your managerial career? Because I mean, you've gone to some far-flung places. You've been in India, you've been in Kazakhstan, you've been in Israel.
Yeah. Yes, I had a period in Israel. I was very connected in Israel. I had a lot of friends out there, and I joined an Arab club, a club that was run by the Arabs, and they were brilliant. The only thing was they were potless, and they paid me the first month. I don't think they paid me after that. But it was great. Whether they were Jewish or Arabic, I didn't take sides at all. But Israel was a great place to work. The football's very vibrant out there. They do love their football, and I enjoyed working there. And then obviously went to India. India was good. Lots of big ex-stars, ex-superstars went to India when they first started. They started just about 11, 12 years ago. A lot of the big stars from Italy and France went over there to play. So they had some big players. The only thing is you're always fighting against the cricket. The cricket is by far the number one sport in India. And there's like little pockets of football in cities where they play a lot of football. But generally they're finding it hard to establish themselves. A little bit like America. Al, you went to Seattle. They're always fighting against baseball. They're always fighting against the American football.
Well, they wouldn't. Yeah, they wouldn't have them on telly. They wouldn't put the NSL on telly. Because the baseball and the American football owners said, if you put that on TV, we're going to pull out.
Yeah. Oh, right.
So they were battling against that. But since this new league's come in to play, and they got more people with. I think it's great having you on, John.
Pleasure. It's lovely to meet you, Al.
And you. Where you living?
I live in Ascot.
Ascot?
Yeah, by the race.
Really?
Right next to the racecourse. Yeah, I've always lived here. Since I played the QPR, we bought a house.
Is this the first time you've actually met Al?
Yeah.
He said good to meet you.
Yeah, he kicked me a few times in the early days. But I couldn't catch him in those days.
I wouldn't have, John. I wouldn't have kicked you. I couldn't have kicked you. I couldn't have kicked you, but I wouldn't have kicked you.
No, I think we played against Al at Stoke.
Yeah. And you had I think you totally outclassed that day. That was my second time around. But if you'd have had that team then, when played us in the 70s, when we had a real good team, that would have been a much better game. But that was a mismatch, that one. We were on our way down.
It looks like John's frozen on us, so it's probably a good time to
knock it on the head.
Draw a halt to the proceedings.
Well, I'm running late anyway.
All right, you crack on.
I've got to go to a funeral to my friend who 50 years up in Stoke, Mr. Terence Bay. I can mention him on the show because he was